So in other words, if you measure truly an economy according to the standards of living, we are all in recession because the wages have gone up less than the rate of inflation.
In today's video, Marc Faber, an investment advisor, fund manager, media commentator and author, discusses the role of central banks in the current global economic crisis, and how their focus on asset inflation has led to misallocation of capital, and a generation of people who cannot afford to buy properties without excessive leverage. He also warns of an inflation crisis, as interest rates rise and the negative impact of invisible taxes like inflation on people's cost of living.
This is a social issue because the rich people say, I consider myself reasonably fortunate. Whether the cost of rice or of beef or pork goes up 20% or not is not a factor in my overall expenditures. But for a family in the low income brackets, I can tell you they all suffer. And I've maintained this for years, that the standards of living of the lower classes had gone down compared to their parents. And that young people today, inflation adjusted, earn less than when their parents were 35 years old, and they have less money than their parents had when they were 35 years old.
Wow.
We have statistics, this is not my invention, produced by the Federal Reserve in America. Except the Federal Reserve board members, they don't look at these statistics. They're busy polishing their images and giving speeches and forecasting and playing the political game and so forth. So they are not, they don't understand. Recently, a Fed governor, the head of the San Francisco Fed, said, yeah, there's inflation, but it doesn't touch me. It doesn't touch me. Because they're not ordinary people, do you understand? They all drive around in limousines and have bodyguards and so forth and so on, and protected homes. But ordinary people, they suffer. And that I'm sure also in Australia, if you go to the workers, their wages have gone up, but not to the same extent that the cost of living has gone up. So in other words, if you measure truly an economy according to the standards of living, we are all in recession because the wages have gone up less than the rate of inflation. And then people who have borrowed money at variable rates, it depends if you borrow money for 50 years at 2% is one thing. But if your mortgage is adjusted every month according to the Reserve Bank rate or to the Fed fund rate, then now interest rates are going up. It squeezes households.
It is squeezing households. We are.
But I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, this is a very important question, and we could see more social unrest. But you understand, the public has become fearful of the government. It's a tyranny of incompetent bureaucrats, and we've seen this incompetence in regard to COVID. Right away, the governments all over the world, they told people you have to get vaccinated, and some who didn't want to get vaccinated, they were sent into camps, into like leper colonies. Yes. And these are democratically elected officials. You have to think about this. Here, I grew up in an environment, at school, they always told me, oh, we are a democracy, we are free. This is all nonsense. We are less free than if there was a king, because the king would be deposed right away or killed or assassinated. But in a democracy, the bureaucracy has such a power And they can tell people, well, if you don't get vaccinated, you're not going to get a job.
Yeah.
So what do? You have 2 small children at home and a wife that complains about everything anyway. It's the usual story. It's vice versa as well, to be politically correct. But then obviously the guy has to get vaccinated to keep his job.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed this because I have many clients in America and readers. Up to a few years ago, people were quite critical when you sent them an email and asked them about something, and also in discussions. Now people shut up. They're scared.
Yeah.
Exactly what I discussed with a friend of mine who is a private banker in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
I said to him, how is it that people in banks don't fight all these additional requirements that are imposed by these retarded and dumb, stupid compliance people in the various banking commission and Securities and Exchange Commission? All these regulations are completely useless, but they bother the clients with it. I mean, some of my private bankers and so on, they tell me half the time is filling out forms. I can believe that. When I started to work for White Weld in 1970 in America, then I came to Hong Kong in 73, and I've lived in Asia since then, both at White Weld and later at Drexel Burnham, where I worked. I could open an account with 1 sheet of paper, this size, A4. The client had to sign at the bottom here, and the account was open. No passport, no questions asked, nothing. Later, when they wanted to trade for options, they had to say another form and down here.
But simple.
And nowadays, you get like a booklet, this thick of papers to open an account.
Ridiculous.
A normal person, I've studied, but I'm not a lawyer. I wouldn't understand this. And to read this would take me a month. Do you think I have a time to read for a month?
And no one does.
Nobody does. And so I asked my friend, how is it that the staff of the banks don't oppose all these new regulations? He said to me, Mark, it's very simple. The bank staff, they all are paid a salary.
Yep.
As we know, bankers, all of them are overpaid. Some are grossly overpaid and some are less overpaid. But the reality compared to, say, a small business owner, whether it's a plumber or a carpenter or whatnot, he will never make the money a banker makes. But they are employees and they get a high salary, relatively speaking, with no responsibility because they can have their money somewhere else. If the bank goes bankrupt, they get their pensions. Their number one ambition is not to get fired.
Absolutely.
So they shut up.
Yep.
And the whole bureaucratic system is built nowadays on people shutting up. It's like the smaller bureaucrats at the bottom. They think their bosses up there are complete idiots, but they will never voice an opinion because they depend on the bosses up there to promote them. And it is true in the bureaucracy, the higher you go, the more the people become stupid.